We are ready to go, and I think one thing to remember, send your questions to the UMRA website, umra.edu, or to the email, and then we can monitor questions. And a suggestion was made from Learn and Grow that I think it was really true. If you're asking a question from the back, we'll bring a mic back to you because it's very hard for people in the front to hear people who are speaking in the back. So. That might help too. Thank you both. Because the questions are very interesting, and I'm sure we'll have questions going forward with this presentation as well. Mary Jo Frank will introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. I'm delighted to introduce our speaker, Elizabeth Burr Moje, Dean of the Marshall Family School of Education, the George Herbert Mead Collegiate Professor of Education, and an Arthur F. Thurnell Professor. Dr. Moje joined the university faculty in 1997 and has served as Dean since 2016. A former high school history and biology teacher, she teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in secondary and adolescent literacy, cultural theory, and research methods. Dr. Moje, along with her colleague, Bob Bain, was awarded the Provost Teaching Innovation Prize in 2010. Her research examines young people's culture, identity, and literacy learning in and out of school in Detroit. Dr. Moje, we're honored to have you as our seminar speaker. We look forward to hearing about the many challenges facing students and teachers, including the impact of the pandemic, the teacher shortage, trauma, the implications of divestment in education, and how K-12 education and teacher training are evolving to transform education and society. Welcome, Dr. Moje.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you to all of you for having me here. You know, it's amazing how many friends I have in the room. So maybe, soon I'll be sitting at the table with you. That would be lovely. I was tutored on how to turn this on. So let's see if I did it right. We are going to talk about education disruption and transformation today. And I really want to emphasize that what we're about in the Marshall Family School of Education, which we fondly call Marshall, is really about thriving. And we're focused on what students and teachers need so that they can thrive, because we want all of society to thrive. And I'm going to tell you right now that I'm quite biased. I believe that education is the most important profession one can engage in our society, and particularly teaching, because no other profession, thank you, I like that, I like applause for that statement. No other profession can exist without teachers. And we can all think of, I hope, multiple teachers in our lives, at least one usually, who really helped us achieve what we wanted to achieve, to really inspire us to new heights. And that's what we're about in the Marshall Family School of Education. Now, I do want to say I'm going to focus a lot on teachers and teaching today, and our transformation of education and teacher education in particular. But in Marshall, we do all kinds of work. We prepare many different kinds of practitioners, education practitioners. We prepare people to be school leaders in addition to being teachers. We prepare people to teach in informal settings, people who might do museum work or work in after school and summer school kind of programming, summer camps. I don't know if any of you were Michigania people. Anybody? Yeah, Mitch Rosenwasser is one of our graduates, and he ran Michigania for many, many years. So, those kinds of people are also part of our quest. We also prepare education policy makers. Now, we'd like to actually prepare more of them more fully so that they actually really understand education before they make policy. But we really do work in that realm, and we would love for you to tell people about that and have them apply to our leadership and policy programs. And then finally, we prepare education researchers. In fact, we are ranked #1 in the world for education science. #1 in the world for education science. Thank you. And a lot of times, because of our focus on, especially right now, the teacher shortage crisis, people don't understand that we also do that research. So I wanted to make sure to share that with you. But today I'm really going to talk about what we need to be doing to reform education, to really disrupt the problematic practices, and then to transform and make opportunity possible for all children to thrive. And that means we need teachers to thrive. So I'm going to start, and we hope, right, that, Roger, that this is going to work. I'm going to start now. Before Roger hits the play button, it's not working, so don't panic. Roger's going to make it work. Who recognizes that? Abbott Elementary, right? So you might think, why is she choosing a fictional television show to start her talk? Well, in fact, Abbott Elementary has a lot of truth in its fiction. All right, well, what I will tell you about this clip is it's a clip in which Gregory, so Gregory's the man standing there, who's a brand new teacher and has come in to save the world, just like Quinta Brunson, whose name I'm blanking on in the show. Does anybody remember it? Janelle? Janine, thank you. Just like Janine is going to do, and several other of the young teachers. Gregory is perplexed because his students ask him the strangest questions when he's trying to teach them mathematics. So he asks them, if Farmer Hank has 2 turkeys and he gets 2 more, how many turkeys does Farmer Hank have? And the kids say, well, I don't know, are any of them pregnant? Right? And he's just so stymied by this, and he thinks it's so strange. Just like do the math, add these 2 numbers together. So there's 2 teachers, 2 veteran teachers. Cheryl Lee Ralph plays the one who's doing this in this clip. I wish Quinta Brunson were here right now so she could hear me narrating her television show. Cheryl Lee Ralph and this other teacher, played by Lisa Ann Walter, decide they're going to help him, and they try to model for him some teaching techniques. This is an important piece, and it all goes, okay, let's see if I can do Cheryl Lee Ralph. She gets up and she's doing this. And she tells Gregory to start doing this with her, right? And then she says, she sings, help me if you've seen it. Farmer Hank has 2 turkeys, Farmer Hank gets 2 more. How many turkeys does Farmer Hank? And Gregory goes, he has 4. And it's just this lovely piece where she's showing. She's actually a Broadway star, so, and I have a cold. So, but it's a lovely piece where they're showing the power of mentoring. They're showing the perplexity, back to the microphone, sorry, that young teachers have when they're faced with what seems like just an obvious kind of task in school, and why aren't the kids engaged with it? And they help him, excuse me, I am getting over a cold. They help him learn how to loosen up, how to engage children, how to excite them and intrigue them. And that's one of the things that we need to work on in schooling. We need to help young teachers really understand how to be efficacious. So that's something I'm going to talk about a lot. What can we do in the very, very short time frame that we have to get the teachers who are actually choosing to enter the profession to a point of feeling efficacious, so that they can not only manage teaching children, but manage all the challenges that they have in the system of education that they're grappling with on a regular basis. And I want to say this has special meaning for me because I just came from a conversation with 7 newly named Teach Blue Fellows. These are long-term teachers who we've awarded a fellowship to study a problem of practice and to put it into practice in their classrooms. And almost every one of them told me that one of their biggest challenges is working in the system. And if you've seen Abbott Elementary, you'll see that that's one of the biggest challenges that Janine is constantly grappling with, that all these new teachers are struggling through. They think they've entered the noble profession and they're going to focus on children, but they're constantly dealing with the larger social context and the political context of education. So that's the setup. Now that I've performed for you, I'm going to take you to a few things that we want to consider. So one of the challenges that children are facing, and that you wouldn't have seen in the Abbott Elementary clip, is that they're really experiencing a lot of trauma in their lives. And this is the #1 problem that teachers name, and named pre-pandemic. I was on an NBC broadcast on Education Nation, and every single panel, the teachers talked about the trauma that their children, their students are experiencing, and the secondary trauma they experience as they live through the trauma of their students and also fail to meet their needs. That's driving people out of the profession. Well, it has gotten worse. It's really, with the pandemic, we've seen a deepening of education inequity. We have seen increasing teacher attrition. I'm going to show you some statistics on that. And we've seen the health and well-being of children across the age span really affected. Actually, initially people were most worried about the very young children because, of course, you learn to read, you learn to do math in those initial years of schooling. You also learn self-regulation, right? Like how to work in a group, how to sit down and listen when someone's talking with you. They weren't learning those things at home. Those are school things, especially mathematics. But what I'm actually more interested in these days is the effects on adolescents who lived through that time. I think that we were so focused on young children that we were forgetting about adolescents who were finding all kinds of other ways to occupy their time, and their only outlet for contact was social media. And so we're really seeing deep, deep trauma among those adolescents, many of whom who experienced the last few years of high school as, in lockdown, and the first few years of college in lockdown. So that's something to keep your eye on. But this is really having a huge impact, not only on our students, but on our teachers and our teaching force. We obviously have interrupted learning, reduced access to teachers, and reduced access to resources and opportunities. I was just part of a court case in California where we actually sued the state of California to get the kinds of resources needed to ameliorate those learning losses that children experience, especially children living in poverty. And the answer that the state was giving, we actually had a very good settlement, so it's a positive story. But the initial answer that the state gave to parents who were concerned about their children's learning losses was to get into online tutoring. Now, there are some problems with that solution. First of all, we know that the only effective tutoring is offered by experienced teachers, certificated teachers preferably, in high dosage and in person. Second, the main reason that children had reduced learning opportunities was they couldn't access their instruction online. So those are the solutions that people are turning to, but those are not effective solutions.
I'm trying something different.
Okay. I can't see my slides, so I'm not sure what's next. I'll talk for a bit more about where we're going next. I wanted to show you some of the statistics on what's happening with teachers as a result. Well, we can't say as a result of the pandemic. It's coincidental, maybe, but we're seeing losses in the teacher workforce at extraordinarily high numbers. So we're looking at, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly, but you'll see them in a minute. We're looking at losses in the hundreds of thousands of teachers. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but guess what the largest workforce is in this country outside of retail sales? Teaching, yeah. Teachers are the largest workforce, and it might even be larger than retail sales these days, because unless you count online sales, that we need so many teachers. It's in the neighborhood of 4 million. So when we're talking about losing 300,000 teachers, that's, you know, not a huge number in the 4 million range. But here's the other problem that we have: people aren't entering the profession. And that's why the state of Michigan is doing things like now paying our students for every semester that they're interning in a public school setting, and they pay them a stipend, so $5,000 a semester for internship, and then a $9,600 stipend for student teaching. Because it's a gamble that we'll be able to get people in the door into, here we go. We can just pop that back up, Roger. We don't need to show that film. Well, I would rather keep going our slides so that we can get to the nitty-gritty here. We don't need the video, really. People got to see me. I'm going to win an Emmy next year. If you just pop it to the fourth slide. So the challenge that we have is that we've got to get more teachers in the door. The single most important ingredient in a child's learning is a well-prepared teacher. And I really want to underscore the fact that we need well-prepared teachers, not living, breathing bodies, but well-prepared teachers. As we say in the Marcel Family School of Education, great teachers are made. They are not born. We often hear, all right, here we go. We often hear, I'm going to go back one just for a second. People say, oh, you're a natural. You should be a teacher. You're a natural. Well, that's not actually true. Nobody is a natural teacher. Teachers do really weird things. They ask students, good teachers ask students strange questions because they want to get them to reveal their thinking. They pull people together in groupings based on what they know, based on assessments, right? These are things you have to learn to do and things you have to learn to manage, right? So we know we need teachers coming in the door. Now, I want to say a few things before I jump into the rest of the talk about teachers, about our National Assessment of Education Progress, because this has implications from the pandemic. So these are 2022 results. So we have seen the average scores have declined in both subjects and grades. So we're seeing math and reading scores declining. Math really declines because nobody learns math outside of school in the way that school teaches math, right? And the tests test the way school teaches math. So we don't do that. We do reading outside of school, but we don't do math. But the scores have declined in both subjects and grades. Average scores declined for most states as well. And students, this is the one we want to be most worried about, students' confidence in their skills actually declined. That's the thing to worry about. Across the board. The NAEP, by the way, National Assessment of Education Progress, is conducted at grades 4 and 8. It's also done at grade 12. It's almost impossible to collect good data at grade 12 for a host of reasons. It only tests the students who are still in school. That's one reason. But the data are just all over the place for 12th grade. But 4 and 8, we've seen some pretty prominent declines. It's important to know, though, that when you hear these dire warnings about declines, keep in mind that we used to talk about the NAEP scores in terms of meeting a basic level of skill. And now, in the last 10 years, there's been this very interesting subtle shift. And I noticed it because I saw this in slides as I was presenting, that we used to talk about students being below basic. Now we're talking about proficient. So as children have been experiencing all these stressors, as we've been losing teachers, as we've seen fewer and fewer teachers getting the preparation they need, the demand is going up. The NAEP is an aspirational test. And so as we raise standards, but we don't intervene on the issues, right? The stressors that children are experiencing, the declining teacher workforce, we have built ourselves a problem. And we're telling a story that is very, very negative, but maybe isn't as negative as we might think. Now, why might people tell that negative story? What reasons do you think we have for raising our standards? Any ideas? Competition? Say more. I don't know where that came from, but say more about that.
With other countries, with foreign industries, especially the emphasis on science and math-oriented fields in engineering and science.
Exactly. This is a national story, and it's a historical story. We are often in competition with other countries, and so we're always pushing higher and higher standards. The other reason is increases or advances in technology, right? Sort of the disappearance, at least some people claim, of jobs that don't require advanced skill levels, and the need for more and more skilled workers. So we're trying to raise the standards, and you may have, how many have heard of the Common Core state standards? Has anybody heard of that? Yeah. That was an attempt to be achieving at higher and higher levels, right? And so we matched the NAEP and the state tests to these standards. But what we haven't done is push in the resources for teachers and for students that would be necessary. In fact, if anything, those resources have disappeared. In addition to being the largest workforce, teaching is the only workforce that has not made up the losses they experienced in the recession of 2007, 2008. It's the only workforce that has not made up those losses. So we have teachers or people considering teaching who ask themselves, why would I go into a job that's low paid, has an increasingly difficult workload? I see it on television, I see it, in the nightly news, I see it in the newspaper, I see it in social media, and has very little respect. The number one reason that teachers say they're leaving the profession is lack of respect. Lack of the opportunity to exercise professional judgment, and lack of respect. So that's the dilemma, that's the issue that we're trying to work on in the School of Education, the Marcel School of Education. So here are the numbers I wanted to show you. Roughly 300,000 educators and support staff who are critical have left the field between 2020 and 2022. Coincidental to the pandemic? Maybe. 55% of educators indicated they would leave the profession or retire early last year. 55. So that's in addition to the 300,000 who've already left. These are from Bureau of Labor Statistics and National Education Association. This is decades in the making. This is not a new phenomenon. It's hitting the suburbs now, And so people are taking more interest. It's been in urban and rural poor areas for a long, long time. It's unequally distributed. There is a pay penalty for teaching, and what we're left with is people who are not qualified to actually serve children to the highest degree. We have to intervene on that problem. So I'm going to talk for the rest of the time about the work that we're trying to do to disrupt and transform. And there are some film clips in there, but Roger, if they don't work on first try, we're not going to try again. I can narrate those as well. So what we're all about at Marcel is really trying to build the society we want to live in. That's our ultimate goal. It's a very distal goal, but we believe that education is critical to doing that. We study how to address educational problems. We prepare practitioners, policymakers, and researchers, as I've already said, and we really work with the communities that we're engaging with. We learn from those communities. We don't go out to fix them. We go out to have our students learn from them and for us to learn from them. And to that end, we engage in what we call research practice partnerships. So we do a lot of basic research. Many of you, may be retired basic researchers, and we work in our building, we work with large-scale data sets, we look at education policy, but we also translate that research into practice, both in applied research and in what we call public scholarship or translational research. And what we're going to talk about, I'm going to just tell you about one right here in Ann Arbor, one of those partnerships, and then I'm going to really focus on our Detroit partnership. So one of our proudest partnerships is here in Ann Arbor Public Schools. It started with Superintendent Todd Roberts. Some of you may remember Todd from way back when. This is a 14-year-old partnership, and I want to underscore that it is very difficult to keep public school partnerships going for that length of time. It has lasted through 3 superintendents and is still thriving under interim superintendent Jazz Parks as we look forward to the next 14 years under new superintendent. The MSH-TLC is the Mitchell Scarlett Huron Teaching Learning Collaborative. Any of your kids go to Mitchell, Scarlett, or Huron back in the day? Yeah. This is a collaborative that starts in southeast Ann Arbor. It's a predominantly Latino and Middle Eastern population, some black students as well, and of course some white students. And then it translates up to Huron because that's the feeder. Mitchell and Scarlett are feeder schools. We have an embedded teacher preparation program there. Our elementary candidates actually do internships at Mitchell and Scarlett, and our secondary candidates do internships at Huron High School. What's really unique about this is that we teach classes in those school settings. We teach children, and our interns watch us teaching children. They also teach children, and we watch them. And the people we work with, the veteran teachers, help us in educating those young teachers. So an important thing to know about our teacher prep program is the minute students enter, they are in what we call clinical practice. They are working with children immediately, and that work is scaffolded so that over time they become more and more independent before they become teachers of record. The other interesting thing to know about Mitchell Scarlett Huron is that about probably 5, maybe even longer ago, years now, I have pandemic time distortion, we found out that Ann Arbor Public Schools was starting an international baccalaureate program, and that they decided to start it at Mitchell, Scarlett, and Huron. And we said, well, we want to get in on that. And the IB, International Baccalaureate, which qualifies students to study anywhere that there's an IB program throughout the world, they came to us. They're headquartered in The Hague. They came to us and asked if we wanted to start IB teacher certification. So we started IB teacher certification as a result of our partners starting IB certification. And I tell you that story just to give you a sense of the way we work as partners. We don't drive the partnership. We actually work in this mutually beneficial way. We're all learning from each other. So that's Ann Arbor. We do a lot there that I'm not going to go into today, but it's really exciting. We're very proud of it. We're very proud of its longevity as well. But what I really am going to focus on today is our Detroit P20 partnership. And as you can see across the top, we call this a cradle to career learning opportunity. It's actually probably better to call it a womb, maybe to tomb learning opportunity, learning community. Because our goal is to work, and it's not just a goal, we're doing this actively now, to work with parents at 26 weeks of pregnancy to counsel them on raising healthy children, what their rights are, what their access to resources might be, and to then make sure that we're building a community of learners who are successful at whatever they want to do when they leave school, when they leave the 12th grade. This is a partnership with all of the people or entities you see listed here. Michigan Marcel started this partnership, but I'll tell you more about how the whole University of Michigan is involved. We have the Detroit Public Schools Community District, and I'll say that again, the Detroit Public Schools. This is not a charter. This is not an independent school. This is part of the traditional Detroit Public School District that makes for, we think, a more translatable kind of model to other public education sites. It also makes for routine trips to the hairdresser for me as I cover the gray that grows more and more rapidly as I work with a public school district. Now, I love working with my colleagues in Detroit Public Schools, but the reality is it's a large public school district, which means there are all kinds of rules and regulations that we're constantly working through together. They're wonderful partners. The Kresge Foundation supports the physical infrastructure. I'll show you a few pictures in a minute. I'll say more about that in a minute as well. Starfish Family Services is our early education provider. They're amazing. They work with families. They are the people who bring in the nurses from School of Nursing to work with families at prenatal stages and also throughout their child's healthy development. And then finally, the Marygrove Conservancy. What's the Marygrove Conservancy? How many of you have heard of Marygrove College? Okay, I bet some of you know someone. Your mother went there, you know, somebody in your life went to Marygrove College. I meet someone at every talk I give, usually multiple people. The Marygrove College sadly had to close in 2019. It closed in 2018 to graduate education, undergraduate education, and was going to continue online graduate education. In 19, they decided they were going to close completely. This is a rebirth of education opportunity on this amazing 53-acre campus. It's right here in Detroit. It is a neighborhood. It is not downtown Detroit. It is not midtown Detroit. Lots of Detroiters feel like downtown and midtown get all the good stuff. This is our work in a neighborhood. Kresge Foundation supports this work because they are really committed to neighborhood development. And they knew that a neighborhood that did not have a viable school center would not be sustainable. You can pour all kinds of infrastructure into a neighborhood, but you must educate the children of the neighborhood. You must have a place for parents to send their children. And so Kresge invested, and they started with a $50 million investment in building a state-of-the-art early education center. It is the most beautiful early education center I've ever seen across the country. It's meant to showcase the value of children in this neighborhood. It's meant to send the message that we care about all children and that all children deserve a high-quality space and a high-quality curriculum in which to learn and to learn from. So come out and see us sometime if you have a chance. Now let me just tell you, and I'm going to try to go fast so that you can ask all the questions you want to ask. Sorry, I keep moving from the mic. I'm used to walking around, so this is harder for me. These are the things that the University of Michigan, and particularly Marcel Family School of Education, does in our P20 partnership. And let me just back up very quickly to this slide. We have two different kinds of facilities. We have the Marygrove Early Education Center, as I said, counsels parents prenatally, then accepts their children at 6 weeks old, and they can go there through 5 years old. Then they march over to the school at Marygrove Elementary. It's the old Immaculata School, if any of you are familiar with the campus. And they go from K to 5 at Immaculata. And then they march even more over to the Liberal Arts Building, the old Liberal Arts Building. That's where the college students went to school for 6th through 12th grade. In the fall, we will be admitting our first freshmen to Marcel Education. They will be University of Michigan Ann Arbor students. They will spend a year living on the Marygrove campus and participating in this ecosystem. And they will graduate from the University of Michigan Ann Arbor. Their next 3 years will be spent largely in Ann Arbor, but doing work back and forth in the community. So I can tell you more about that program in a bit. Now, let me move forward to the P20 system. These are our commitments, and I made a little heuristic so I could remember it. It's all about empowering experiences, empowering educators, empowering environments, and empowering evaluation and research. What we do is partner with Detroit Public School teachers and with our Starfish Family Services educators to build empowering experiences for the children on this campus. That's both co-curricular experiences and extracurricular experiences. I'm going to say more about those in a bit, so I won't go into more detail there. We also, through what we call the teaching school, the Michigan Education Teaching School, educate empowering educators who can empower others. We empower the educators to empower others. In this model, which I'll tell you more about as well, we are running our regular teacher ed program, but then we support 3 years of teacher residency for their first 3 years of teaching. Remember that point about efficacy, needing to feel like you're making a difference. That's what we're doing by working with educators. We're also in the process of building a full-service health clinic that will be open not only to the children and their families, but to the entire community. And we have many partners in that work. I'll say more about that. And then finally, we are constantly doing evaluation and research because we need to hold ourselves accountable to those children and their families, and because we want to tell the story. This is not just this instantiation, this is a proof of concept. This is an argument that we're making that all universities could be partnering in this way, using our academic mission and our research and service missions to advance and support communities. So let me tell you a few details. Now, Roger, this is where films are coming up. We're not going to play them. We're not going to play them unless they play immediately. So we work to build what we call a problem and place-based or project and place-based curriculum in every grade level, in every classroom. Our theme at the school is engineering and design thinking for social justice. All our students take engineering and design thinking from preschool through 12th grade. All of them. That's not left to after school. That's not left to a first robotics program. That's not left to Michigan Engineering Zone, which is a great, great program. There you are. I had to make sure to say that because those are extracurricular opportunities. We have all of those and more, but we want to make sure that every child is having an experience learning design thinking and engineering through real-world projects. So you see, I don't know how well you can read the screen, but there's a child presenting on a project called Housing in the D. Housing in the D was a study of affordable housing in Detroit and how one builds affordable housing. So they were actually learning, this was an economics class, but they were learning math, They were learning history, they were learning communication skills, they were learning a whole range of both academic content and skill and what we call professional skills. They were learning how to work as a team, how to set deadlines, how to communicate effectively, and many, many more. Some people call those soft skills. We don't think there's anything soft about those skills. We think that's where a lot of people actually struggle. So we call those professional skills. So that's the kind of work we do. It's interdisciplinary, it's inquiry learning, and it's based, this is the place-based part, in local questions. And then we try to help them see the global, state, national and global connections, right? So they never just stay in their own experience, but they start with their experience. In the freshman year, while the building was still being renovated, the human-centered design and engineering 9th grade teacher had the students design the classrooms they wanted for 10th grade. And then they presented their designs to the architects and construction managers who were going to be building those classrooms. They gave them feedback, gave the kids feedback. The kids went back and iterated on those designs. So they got real-world professional input, and they learned through that process. It's really exciting. They do all kinds of things. They made proposals about the school lunch program that got the lunch program changed. They do all kinds of things. I know you're laughing because, school lunch, right? But they made a difference, so they got to see the effect of their work. This one we're going to skip over in the interest of time. Oh, this one's playing. Okay, this just gives you an example. And this, by the way, shows that we work with engineering, the College of Engineering. I'm going to just stop talking. Can you turn it up, Roger? It needs to be louder. Okay. How about if we skip it and come back to it? Yeah, I think that would be better. Let's just move on. If we have time at the end, if you can get it up and running. This was called Sensors in a Shoebox, and it was an amazing project where kids were out testing the water in the riverfront. I worked with then Professor of Engineering Jerry Lynch, and we built these shoebox sensors, and then the kids take them and place them at different parts of the city and conduct inquiry using the sensors and using social science research methods as well, interviews, questionnaires, and then they have to analyze all the data. And then we did many iterations of this. They were reporting to city council, they were reporting to neighborhood alliances, and again, seeing change made as a result of their work. Really exciting work. That's now the 10th grade curriculum. I feel like it's still playing. So I'm going to go on and talk over top of it. These are just some examples of our project and place-based curricula. One of the ones that I'm super excited about is this second bullet. How do you revitalize a community without displacing people, right? Without gentrifying the community. Imagine the math, the history, the language, the science that young students could learn as they engage in that kind of project and place-based work. We also, as I said, work to empower educators. This is an example of one of our residents. This is Isra El Shefi. She's now gone on to grad school, sadly. We're going to skip over that one, Roger. Going right past it. I wish you could see it because you'd learn what the young teachers are learning to do. But this is the model, Michigan Education Teaching School. It's based on medical education. It's a teaching school is like a teaching hospital where everybody cares about the learning of children and the learning of teachers. It's incredible. We have interns placed at the school, we have student teachers placed at the school, and then they get hired into residency. They are paid, they are certified, and they are really strong teachers by the time they leave our program. They do have to leave, which is painful, but physicians leave residency too, and new physicians come in. And so that's the model that we're trying to build. We focus on support in the critical first years of teaching, so every teacher has a coach. And for the first 2 years, they have one course reduced from their load. So in addition to their prep period, they have a professional development period every single day of the week. Our school, by the way, is block scheduling, so classes meet every other day, and they meet for 100 minutes because we need the time to be able to do the kinds of projects. You can see this representation. Happy to answer questions about that as we move forward. This is our work called Teach Blue, where through this work at Marygrove, we're recruiting future teachers. Then we will invest in them as they come into our program. We support them as residents, and then we elevate them as Teach Blue fellows. And that fellow in the very top, the one who's on the Elevate bubble, is Michael Cherzan. He's an amazing mathematics teacher at the school at Marygrove. Very quickly, we are working to build holistic and healthy learning conditions. We want to be able to hit on every dimension of whole child learning. We talk about the health determinants of learning. You know how people talk about the social determinants of health? What if you flip that? What if you think about the fact that children who can't see well can't learn? What if children can't hear well and we don't have a way to assess that or intervene on it? More interesting, what about oral health? I was on a School of Dentistry study several years ago that was conducted in Flint. The children were assessed as having caries so advanced that the dentists, the dental experts, determined that there was no way they could be cognitively present in classroom learning. So we are building a dental clinic. The School of Dentistry has donated chairs from their clinic, and we have our first gift to help support the clinic. And as soon as we can get a physical medicine partner on board, we have the School of Nursing and we have the School of Social Work also on board. So you can see now we're talking about a full university commitment, but we're also talking about educating child-serving professionals beyond teachers, right? Social workers, nurses, dentists, physicians. It's very, very exciting. We're meeting with a pediatrician, a U of M grad in Boston who started something similar. She's coming out to visit with us next week to help us think about how to build this out. We're having a little problem figuring out the medical partner. Medicine is expensive. It's actually really hard to open a clinic, turns out. We'll have all of those kinds of wraparound services, and we have more. We have so many extracurricular opportunities for our students. We have put in, we have showers because it was a college campus. We have washing machines available because we have kids who are experiencing homelessness. And so we're providing all of those kinds of services as well. And then finally, we're doing research. I'm going to just try to cut to the chase. We graduated our first class of seniors last year, 2022. If you have a chance, thank you. Thank you. Watch the DPTV video. We have a lot of video. Unfortunately, it's hard to show it. But watch that. It's called The Pioneers of Marygrove. The children are so proud of themselves for being the first graduating class. They said things like, "We're the only people who will be the first graduating class." It was just precious. We have, I believe, 6 of them came to the University of Michigan. We're really happy about that. We hope to increase that pathway for them. We have students going all over, Wayne State, Oakland, MSU. No, I'm just kidding. We don't let anybody go south. No, not at all. No, I'm just teasing. But we're really, these are things that, you can read these for yourselves. We're seeing achievement. We just were informed that our elementary students had the highest math achievement on their last iReady assessment that we give they give 3 times a year before the achievement tests come, highest in the district, so we're very proud of that. They're going to be featured. Teaching interns and residents are really happy with the support they're getting. Even our veterans are saying, I don't know if I would still be in teaching if it weren't for this program and this work. High levels of student attendance, even during the pandemic. We dropped during the pandemic, but not as much as other places. And people are moving into the neighborhood to send their children to this school setting. It is a proof of concept. And what is it attempting to show? First of all, as I said before, that we can, as university researchers and educators, actually use our research and our teaching in the service of community-led improvement. We show the potential of strong education institutions as levers of neighborhood revitalization. We're demonstrating the power of collective impact and also what it takes to stay a collective, lots and lots of trust building, and it's providing those lessons on how to do it. We're planning to write about this as soon as we get the whole thing built out and have time to take a breath. Very quickly, this is our new undergraduate program where we'll be admitting freshmen. It's called Learning, Equity, and Problem Solving, or LEAPS for the public good. It is a bachelor's degree in education for U of M students. It is not a teaching certificate program, but that doesn't mean people couldn't decide to get a teaching certificate through our program. We currently only admit people into teaching at their junior year, and so this is a way that we can start influencing and recruiting people at an earlier start point. Is community embedded, action oriented, and mastery based. And I'm happy to talk more about what that means. I'm going to skip past that and stop so that you can ask me questions. Thank you. Are there questions? Do we have time for questions? Free Joe?
I just have one. Where the Marygrove campus is, that's the building, et cetera, it's close to the University of Detroit.
It is.
And I was curious, have you used any of their resources or students to help you in this program or assist you in this program?
Absolutely. So I'm really glad you asked that question. When we started the work, the Kresge Foundation hired DCDC, which is Detroit Community Development Collective, I believe. They're actually architects and urban planners, but they contracted with them to help us lead the community engagement effort to be sure the community even wanted this reimagination of education at Marygrove. And so we built that relationship right from the start. Now with LEAPS beginning, they have, UD Mercy or University of Detroit has, an undergraduate program as well. And so we're trying to learn from them about the ways that they, keep their students busy, in the middle of Detroit. Detroit is, as you know, many of you know, is an automotive community. So it isn't always easy to get around. And so we're trying to kind of, I don't like the phrase pick their brains because that sounds terrible, but we're trying to learn from them about what are ways that they engage their students and how might we bring our students together. So those are just a couple of the examples. It's only about a mile and there's a beautiful new green space in Fitzgerald Park that the city has developed. And so there's bike paths and we're gonna have a bike stop on the bike. There's a special bike rental kind of system there. And so we're hoping that we can have a really robust exchange with University of Detroit. They're great partners. Microphone, please.
Thanks for your presentation. Marygrove sounds like a wonderful place to live and learn. And so what strikes me is that you're doing what I think a lot of other schools wish they would do. Getting a little feedback here. Yeah, okay. And that is trying to create a community hub. Could you talk a little bit more about the benefits of that?
Yes, absolutely. I think you're right. I think lots of universities and lots of particular schools of education would like to have more rootedness in communities. It's so powerful to have a community education hub. Someone said to me several years ago, we were designing an architecture program for high school students, and the capstone project was that the students would design a cultural institution. And schools weren't on the list. And I said to the person I was working with, why aren't schools on the list? And the person said, schools aren't cultural institutions. And they were thinking of libraries and museums, right? But to me, they're like, they should be the centerpiece of culture and community. So that's why I'm so grateful to the Kresge Foundation. They don't provide funding for us. We provide our own funding. We're constantly fundraising for this. But, excuse me, their commitment, their, taking on the big gamble. I mean, this is a big enterprise. That commitment to the neighborhood and to seeing education as the source of community, the inspiration for community, and recognizing that children will be the leaders of those communities, or they'll leave them, right? One or the other will happen. And that knowledge, that commitment on the part of the Kresge Foundation, I can't say enough about Rip Rapson and Wendy Jackson and Jonathan Hui, excuse me, who are the people behind this. That is what this is all about. It's understanding that education is a community endeavor. The other thing we're trying to do, if anybody has a few, extra $1 million and would like to invest in real estate development, would love to build a teacher village, right? Low cost or affordable teacher housing, because we know that when teachers can walk to school with their students, students have higher achievement. Now, it's not really the act, of course, of walking to school together, although that's nice. It's the proxy for living in the neighborhood, being part of the community, knowing who your students are. So these are all the kinds of things we're actually trying to document in that proof of concept. I kind of rushed through that, but that's absolutely what all of this is about. And for too long, we've kind of put schools off, like in someone else's realm of responsibility. And many times when I talk about transforming education, people will say, it's too hard, it's impossible. Well, it is impossible if we don't try. So that's how I think about it. Now, I do have colleagues who refer to me as Judy, as in Judy Garland and Andy Hardy. Let's put on a show. But I have this belief that if we really work on this together and work collectively, that's a form of community as well. We can do this, and it's so far 5 years in, a graduated class, first graders who, when you walk in the door, hug you and tell you how old they are, and then ask you how old you are. They're just adorable. They're wonderful. They're beautiful, bright, brilliant young people. So they're the community. So many hands. I saw you were next, and then back there. I'm sorry to point, so rude. My mother taught me better, but as did my father.
Are these actually kids in the neighborhood that are walking to school, or is it drawing from anywhere in Detroit?
Great
question. How big was
question.
your graduating class?
Great question. Graduating class was around 110. We're capped at 120. We lost children in the pandemic. So we started at 100, and I think we had 117 in our first class. We lost a few. I know we had 95 kids who went all 4 years through. Oh, thank you. I have water down here. Thank you. When we opened, we started with 9th grade. Renovation. is really challenging and slow, and so we couldn't admit the little ones because things are too high in a college campus for little ones, especially urinals. Think about it. So we started with 9th grade, and we did make that an examination school, one of the 5 examination schools in the district, but we give neighborhood priority. So they get 10 extra points for 1 square mile residence and 5 extra points for 2 square miles. 70% of the first class was from the neighborhood. They were walking to school. So we're really excited about that. But equally exciting, I believe it was something like 57% were returning to or first-time Detroit Public Schools students, even though many of them lived in the neighborhood, because they were leaving to get other kinds of education. So this was a way to bring students back into DPS, which is very important as well. The early ed is a mixed income model. So it has to be mixed income, so we have funding from Head Start and Great Start, and then private payer, which we love. We love that it's, the kids are all mixed together, lots of different incomes. Neighborhood residence is prioritized, which is why we're seeing people move into the neighborhood. And those children will move into K. And then when kids leave 5, they'll move into 6, and 8 into 9. And so eventually it will be effectively a neighborhood school, but there will always be extra seats for students from around in the high school, because we can admit 120 per grade. Yeah. I see our leader signaling.
Kind of two-piece thing. It seems like we think of education as really defined as a K-12 and then college level. Why are we not teaching from the beginning of being a lifelong learner? And how is AI going to impact what you're doing?
Ooh. Well, thanks for throwing the simple question there on the end. So I'm really glad you asked that question. I have plants in the audience, and clearly you are one of them. The first question about what we call vertical alignment. So this is meant to be an intergenerational model, and it is meant to be very tightly aligned vertically. So we do a lot of horizontal alignment in our K-12 schools, and then as you said, you must be in education. We have these breaking points, right? And we separate kids out and actually try to keep them apart. But our model is to really align and make sure that every teacher of young children knows where their students will be going, and every teacher of older students knows from whence they came. We also are bringing the kids together. So our 9th graders in that human-centered design and engineering class, they are working with the 1st graders to design Play Lab, which is the play space for the 1st graders. So they go over and they talk to the 1st graders and they think about what they want to see as a play space. And then the 9th graders design it, and then they go back and they show them what they've designed. And so their clients, if you will, are these little 1st graders. So that's how we're trying to really break down those walls. That's why we're so excited about starting LEAPS, Learning, Equity, and Problem Solving, with a residency at Marygrove, because those will be freshmen. They'll be 18 years old, and there'll be some 18-year-olds in the 12th grade on that same campus. And so young people will get to see pathway mediators. They'll get to see people who are in college. Now, what we're still working on is how we make sure that they don't see their dorm rooms. The high school students don't see the dorm rooms of the freshmen. So we're trying to think about all these, interesting. This is why sometimes we see those breaking, those firewalls between grades, because we are trying to protect students. So we're trying to think about how we navigate those kinds of security concerns, those challenges. What if some of those 12th graders graduate from Marygrove and become freshmen and LEAPs and still have friends back in the high school? How do we help them learn to think about the boundaries without putting up physical boundaries? We also, by the way, if you've seen Marygrove's campus, they have a big wrought iron fence. And community members have expressed feelings of, otherness, right? Being kept out. And so we're trying to think about, what do we do about a wrought iron fence when we have tiny children on these grounds who need to be protected? Older children too, in the face of school violence that we've seen, right? There are a lot of school safety issues. How do we break the boundaries but protect? So these are the challenges we're working through, and they're hard, really hard challenges, but we're learning a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
This was
you.
so informative.
Thank you.